Hey, how are you? Happy Friday evening. Week 11 of the NFL season has already kicked off. We had one heck of a game on Thursday night, but we can take that and times it by like 200,000 million when we get to the main slate on Sunday. I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie. That is Dave at Corporal Eddie here with fantasy6pack.net to talk about the DFS den. We're going to go over some ideas, some thoughts, everything that I've had, that I put together this week. I've the quarterbacks article is out, the running backs article is out, the wide receiver article is out. So this is what Dave has said will be like kind of just we're gonna run through some things. It's gonna be a few ideas, nothing set in stone. We'll save that for Sunday morning, Dave. But I'm glad to be here. It is Friday again. Like poof, before you know it, it's week 11. Some playoff pictures are starting to kind of make themselves known. There's still a bunch of teams that need to do a ton of work to get what their need to be. But to be fair, Dave, I don't care about any of that crap. I care about week 11 and what we can do to win not only money for ourselves, but to win some cash for everybody out there that's watching, Dave. So in terms of what happened last week, it was both good and bad. Obviously, I didn't win $1 million. If I did, or if you won $1 million, we'd be doing this broadcast maybe from
Cancun.
From somewhere tropical, but instead I'm at home in my own basement, which is kind of my fortress of solitude. As you can see, there's Mad magazines and G.I. Joe action figures everywhere. This is where I go when I need some peace here. But Dave, when we look at this slate, just sorry to just throw you under the bus right off the bat. When you look at week 11 so far, what's the one thing that stuck out to you? And it could be anything. This one quarterback is just crazily priced. I got like a double stack with Green Bay wide receiver. Like, what is the one thing that stands out to you like a sore tooth thumb, or however they say that for this week?
I would say that there is quite a bit of value available this week. And, value doesn't necessarily mean, there's a good punt tight end or, there's a good punt wide receiver or something like that. I think that there are some decent punt options, but I think that there's a handful of guys that are just mispriced. At least on DraftKings, guys that I think could or should be more. And so some of that has to do with, injuries and guys coming back. And so the prices maybe, don't match what they are going to be next week, kind of a thing. But I'd say as a whole, there's a decent amount of value, which from a cash perspective makes things easier. It makes the build easier. I've kind of been looking at roughly the same thing since Tuesday. I made the changes a little bit here and there, injury news and, whatnot. But my lineup isn't that drastically different than, it's a fluid build throughout the week until Sunday. But it's remained relatively similar Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now into Friday.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get right into it here because there's a few of them. There's actually probably 24 players, right? And I earlier, it's sometimes things get lost in the shuffle, right? Personally, I'm able to write my articles, no issue. I'm able to show up in a broadcast and stuff, but there's certain things that fall through the cracks. I mean, I'm not a perfect human being, right? And I always share my notepad when it comes, and I was able to share that, earlier today when it comes to this week 11, and the highlighted, and I have player projections and everything you see in this notepad you can get in the article, right? I name the player, the price tags, what I have for their personal projections, if I think they're going to score a touchdown or two. Everything is right there in front of us. But when we start with the quarterback position, Dave, if you don't mind, when we look at this one, as it stands right now, because Josh Allen is the most expensive player at the quarterback spot, and that's because you get the likes of, I believe Patrick Mahomes is not on the main slate. He's Monday Night Football with that Super Bowl kind of repeat there. But when I look at this one, Josh Allen is the most expensive quarterback on the main slate, and I'm all hands off deck, right? Because the Buffalo Bills And again, I have nothing bad to say about the Bills. The Bills are one loss away just from completely just, I don't know what's going to happen there. And again, when you look at their fan bases on social media, I mean, you can't take that seriously. You take it with a grain of salt. But I've seen people say if the Buffalo Bills lose this week against the Jets, it's time for a full rebuild. You got to, I mean, that is a little bit crazy when Buffalo was challenging to, in the AFC to make it to the Super Bowl. They just couldn't figure out Kansas City, whatever. But I don't think one down season leads itself to like a full rebuild. I mean, that would be the stupidest thing possible. And that just goes to show you how much people know or don't know on social media. So to me, Josh Allen's playing the Jets. I don't want anything to do with Josh Allen this week because he is too expensive. He's turned the ball over, and I hope he absolutely smashes and tears, and that would be great. But for this week, I'm completely off. Two guys that I'm all over this, right? Actually three, and I'll be quick with the last one here. It's got to be Brock Purdy. And when you look at him, you could say that, bottom of the barrel and the price tags and stuff. It's all relative in my head. I have no real, anything written down that's like if you're 7'5", you can't be in the article. But when I looked at Brock Purdy this week, Frisco plays Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 28th overall against opposing quarterbacks. They're like 30th against opposing wide receivers. When it comes to running backs, however, Tampa Bay's second. And again, we'll get to that. But Christian McCaffrey, $10,000 on FanDuel going against a very stout Tampa Bay defensive line. No go with Christian McCaffrey. But when we look at Brock Purdy, 7.5 on FanDuel, 5.8 on DK, $28 on Yahoo. Personally speaking, you can chime in and say I'm crazy or anybody in the comments here. I think Brock Purdy, 20 to 21 completions, around 280 yards. I think he throws for 2 touchdowns. I think he finds the end zone on the ground in this one. So I'm projecting Brock Purdy to find the end zone 3 times, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground. And given his price point, that is a beautiful thing. And then we have to kind of get to that. Well, 2 touchdowns. Where are they going to go? Is it going to be Ayuk? Is it going to be Samuel? It could both of those touchdowns could be Christian McCaffrey. Just a simple flick of the wrist, 5 yards, and Christian McCaffrey does all the work for you. So for that factor, I love Brock Purdy this week. And if we go down a bit here, this might be shocking, but Trevor Lawrence is still a blue chip prospect stud. And again, he hasn't played well, and that's okay. Young kids, young guys are going to go through that. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Trevor Lawrence, this is his third professional season. As a quarterback, he was the golden goose. He was the number 1 overall pick, before he even played his senior year in college. But, that whole, Jacksonville team hasn't been up to snuff. And again, we're in week 11. There's still time to go on a run and really solidify yourself. Let's go on a run. Let's bury some people and see what happens at the end of the day. But when you look at Trevor Lawrence, they're hosting the Tennessee Titans in this one. $7,000 on FanDuel, $6,000 on DK, and we go from there. The Tennessee Titans 12th overall against opposing quarterbacks. But again, at this portion of the season, DVP isn't really, on my radar. It's on my radar when I write an article because it's in the heart and soul of bottom of the barrel. But when you look at Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, I have T-Law, 24 completions, around 270 passing yards. I think he does throw 2 touchdowns. I think he's a threat to find the end zone on the ground. So I'm looking at almost similar stat lines for Purdy and Trevor Lawrence in this one. And again, when you look at T-Law, we might be able to get him at low ownership percentages because people are already jumping ship with Trevor Lawrence. I don't care about him anymore. He's a bum. It's done and over with. And those are the people you don't want to surround yourselves with because they're, when you react like that, I don't want anything to do with that. And lastly, I'll give you one more guy. And Dave, you could take all the time you need when we get to quarterbacks. It's got to be Jordan Love. And look, Jordan Love has been, I was going to say Jordan Love has been, he's been less than stellar, less than okay. Jordan Love, Green Bay's hosting the Los Angeles Chargers, right? And last week, it was that was one of the better games of last week, the Lions and the Chargers. It was a ton of points. It kind of came down to the wire a little bit. But when you look at Jordan Love, he has a chance here to kind of, to me, I think this is a all or nothing game for Jordan Love. It's like if you're going to take the next step for the Green Bay Packers for the future in your third year, you're the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers here. It's got to be in this game against the Chargers, who we've known they're a sieve in the secondary, right? And Jordan Love, if he does this thing right, he can get to 2 or 3 touchdown passes in this one. And we'll get to wide receivers and we'll go from there. But I love Jordan Love. I love Brock Purdy, and I love Trevor Lawrence this week. And again, I have 10 other 10 other quarterbacks, I'd love to talk about, but we'd be here till 12 o'clock at night. So I'm rolling with Purdy, Love, and Lawrence. Dave, where are you headed this weekend?
Well, we got a question here that kind of involves the quarterback, so I wanted to go ahead and hit it. Chad says, I'm going to try to elaborate here. And it says, hey, lads, I think he's saying 4D chessing the situation, or is it reasonable to avoid Rams skill position players, assuming Stafford isn't 100%, gets knocked out of the game and replaced by Wentz? So first thing that I will say is I don't ever predict injuries. If a guy is going to be playing, I assume he's going to finish the game. I will take the fact that he's limited, and I may adjust from there. But if a guy's playing, I'm assuming he's going to finish the game. So in this particular case, I'm going to assume Stafford's going to play. And I don't even mind. Now, granted, this isn't, MME, maybe even a large field kind of a play, but I don't have a problem with Stafford double stacked with Puka and Cup, and you roll with it. So that's my thought process. If I'm going to play Stafford, I'm not going to be worried about it. Either I'm going to play him and I'm going to play, his weapons, or I'm just going to completely fade him. I don't think there's a whole lot of in between there. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, Stafford is mentioned in bottom of the barrel here. When you look at Stafford, I wrote the article, so I think it's okay if I cheat and I steal some terms and
plagiarize yourself.
Plagiarize myself. Yeah. When you look at Stafford here going against Seattle is around 21st overall against opposing quarterbacks here. But I look at Stafford as that I can't stop thinking about him as like this old Western guy who walks into a bar and he gets into a gunfight and he always wins. And because he's been around so long, he's seen everything. And I will never count this guy out as long as he lives, as long as he's playing in the NFL. And that stems from all of his time here in Detroit. And he's been a great ambassador of the city of Detroit, even now that he's living in LA. That's not going to, all that nonsense I just said isn't going to win us money. But when you look at Matthew Stafford here and you said, all the skill position players, he's got Darrell Henderson, Rice Freeman, who aren't household names, but they get shit done. And when you look at Seattle, they're almost dead last in terms of defending opposing running backs here. And who wins the game? I mean, I have, I've already written it out. I have my projections and who's going to win what and all that stuff. But when you look at Cooper Kupp and Puka and Atwell and even Ben Skronek here, I also love Tyler Higbee, and we'll get to that here. But when you look at that, the Seattle 19th to 20th DVP against opposing wide receivers, I have no qualms just stacking the hell out of the Los Angeles Rams this week against the Seattle Seahawks. So to me, I'm all over Stafford. As I said, he was like the 4th or 5th player I wrote in bottom of the barrel. And if Wentz has to come in, it's going to be game over because Wentz bounced around. He had like a 6 or 7 game stretch where he was the man, and he's just been nothing ever since. So to me, it is all about Matthew Stafford, and all his skill position players are studs as well. And Cooper Kupp is a stud. Puka as a rookie has already, risen up and become some sort of a stud. So I got no issue with Matthew Stafford this weekend in DFS purposes and in seasonal formats for dynasty stuff, because I know seasonal formats are close to the playoffs here. So Matthew Stafford all day until the day I die. Give me Matthew Stafford.
Joe, or I say Joe and then Mo Green. I'm thinking Mean Joe Green. But Mo, I do see Mo here has got a DJ Moore question or a DJ Moore comment that I just want you to know, Mo. I will get to it. That's not what I meant to click on. But I will get to it, Mo. We're gonna wait till we get to wide receivers for that. For me, It's pretty simple from a cash perspective for quarterback. You already named Brock Purdy. he's not as flashy as the other guy that I'm going to mention, the guy I'm probably going to end up playing. But what I put in our Discord is you can't spell Brock without Rock, and that is how solid he's been as far as a cash player is concerned. You can roll your eyes all you want to. That's not bad. Purdy, one game under 2.5x this year. I think he, quote unquote, snapped out of his funk last week, but no coincidence that, his left tackle is back and his, wide receiver 1 is back last week. I think that is got a lot to do with it. Tampa Bay, like you had talked about, pass funnel all year long, 22nd schedule adjusted fantasy points, 2 quarterbacks on the year. If you want to save a little bit of money, I think you can go down to Purdy. I don't think you give up anything really to anybody floor-wise, but ceiling you do. Excuse me. And I think that's probably the difference between Purdy and Kyler Murray for me. Kyler Murray, I couldn't play him last week because, the legs were such a part of his game. And I really needed to see, was he going to be the same threat with his legs as the Kyler Murray that we knew? I figured, 2-3 weeks probably before I would see what I wanted to see from Kyler to where he could be considered for cash. He looked absolutely fantastic last week. And I'm to the point, I'm already ready to roll him out. He looked like the Kyler Murray of old to me. I mean, maybe 90%, with the legs, but 90% of Kyler Murray with his legs may still be the best running quarterback in the league minus Lamar Jackson. So, great price here. Matchup is really good. Texans 26 in schedule adjusted fantasy points to QBs. Just a phenomenal combination of, salary and of just opportunity here as well. From an MME perspective, real quick, the guys that I'm kind of looking at, I won't get too into it because I know that's not my place, but I like Jared Goff this week going up against the Bears. So that's where DJ Moore run back is going to come in real handy. And then I kind of like Dak as well. I like double stacking Dak. If you look at the matchups, you're going to see Carolina looks as though they're really good against, the quarterback. They're actually second in schedule adjusted fantasy points to quarterbacks because they're 31st in running backs. And we've seen how Tony Pollard has been this year. I'll talk about him here in just a little bit, but Tony Pollard has been horrendous. And I think people are still going to end up wanting to play him, which is fine. I get it. But I'm going to go ahead and roll with Dak, who I don't have it in front of me, but I think he's been at least 4x on his salary the last 4 weeks. So that's interesting to me. And I'm going to I don't know if it's going to be chalk, but I'm going to kind of fade the Tony Pollard portion of things and hopefully let people make the mistake. We'll see what happens. I mean, he could go for 40, but hopefully he does not do that. And, the Dak double stack ends up being phenomenal. But let's head into running backs, Chris. What are you looking at there?
Oh, I got tons of them, and they're highlighted. They're color coordinated. I mean, I have I shouldn't say I have a system. It's been the same system for all these years here. First and foremost, we need to start with CMC briefly, and just because he is the most expensive player by a few $1,000s across the board. At least he's $10,000 on FanDuel, and they're going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are second against opposing running backs. But that's bullshit because Christian McCaffrey is matchup proof. He's DVP proof. He could go against the Goon Squad from you know what I mean. He from what was that movie with Jordan and then what's his
Space
name?
Jam.
Space Jam. He could go against those guys, and he would still just go off the charts. And to me, when you have the top ranked running back at $10,000, it puts things into perspective when we dig a little deeper, when we want to look at Jerome Ford, Rashad Wright, Devin Singletary, who we mentioned last week and went nuts. We mentioned Devin Singletary 2 weeks in a row. In both weeks, he went unbelievably off. Same thing with Noah Brown, was in bottom of the barrel last 2 weeks, and he had 150 yards, 170 yards. So it's kind of like, Dave, it's kind of like we know what we're doing, and it's crazy. Just we get it out to the people. Who would have thought, right? That they would give a show to two dummies who actually know what they're doing and enjoy doing what they're doing. So I want to start with Jerome Ford. Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns are playing Pittsburgh this week. Pittsburgh 23rd overall against opposing wide receivers. When you look at Jerome Ford, 6-7 on FanDuel, 5-2 on DK, only $20, on Yahoo. And I'm going to work my way back. I got like 4 or 5 guys, but I'm going to be quick with each one. When I look at Jerome Ford, it's tough to find a running back like Jerome Ford this late in the season. And Ford isn't mentioned among the top backs in the league right now, but he's getting a ton of work and he's getting it done. And he's that hard runner we all want in on, because once Nick Chubb went down, everybody just brushed the Browns aside. If Nick Chubb isn't there, who cares? We got nothing. And Kareem Hunt was okay for a little while, and now this is Ford's show. Ford has been running hard. He's been, getting it all done. So Jerome carried the ball 17 times for 107 yards last week, playing in Baltimore action. He's only the second running back all season to top the 100-yard rushing mark against the Baltimore Ravens, who are looked to be on the fast track to the Super Bowl, to the AFC Championship game. But we will go from there. And when you look at what he can do, given his price tag, I'm all over Jerome Ford, and I have Jerome Ford, if I may say, 16, 17 carries, 70, 75 yards. He will score a touchdown. We can count that, and a couple receptions for about 15 or 20 more yards. So to me, Jerome Ford should be right in that 100 all-purpose yard range and a touchdown, and the price tags are just like, you can't miss it. When we go down the list a little bit, Devin Singletary, Houston is playing Arizona, 30th overall against opposing running backs. And last week, Devin Singletary went nuts once again. And we saw him in Buffalo, and it was kind of a weird thing because James Cook came in, Latavius Murray was around back then, and they wouldn't really give Devin Singletary the light of day. They wouldn't use him. And now Houston with CJ Stroud is an unbelievable. He's kind of made himself to be, without a doubt, the offensive rookie of the year at the quarterback position. And Devin Singletary is one of those guys that's able to take the weight off of CJ Stroud's shoulders. CJ Stroud doesn't have to have the entire Houston Texans, facility on his shoulders. He can pass, he can run, and Devin Singletary, to me, is that guy. 14 to 15 carries, 75, 80 yards. I think Singletary finds the end zone again and a reception or two, nothing but 10 yards. So to me, Devin Singletary is someone, that I'm going to want in a lot of lineups here. I want to go back just one, just one up. I'm saying, because I'm reading from my bottom of the barrel list here. Rachaad White, if you got anything to say about him, I will save it for you. But if you don't, I'm going to get into it here, because
he's not on my list. You're good.
Because Rachaad White, the Tampa's playing in San Francisco. San Francisco's defense is outstanding. They're very good. They're 8th actually against opposing running backs. And Rachaad White, 6-6 on FanDuel, $6,000 on DraftKings, $19 on Yahoo. But when you look at what this kid's done the last few weeks, it's like you can just give him the ball and he's going to find a spot, right? If you look at Rachaad White run, they always say, I'm almost 40, and I even remember when I played high school football, it was always get low, get your shoulder pad level low, and you can win. And I've seen Rachaad White run, especially when he took that swing pass. It was a reception, and he zoomed up the sideline. He was kind of running straight up, but again, he was in the open field, and it didn't matter to me. But Rachaad White, he rushed 20 times for only 15 yards last week, but he caught 47. He caught X amount of passes for 47 yards, and one of them was that 46-yard reception down the sideline for a touchdown. In today's day and age of football, the bell cow term is not used that much anymore, because more and more teams are adopting that 1-2 punch. Look at what the Lions are doing. Look at whatever other teams have that 1-2 punch. But when you look at, when you think bell cow, you think of Jamal Charles, Marshawn Lynch, and even the active Derrick Henry right now. But to me, I'm looking for Rachaad White to really step up again if the Buccaneers have any chance at beating the 49ers. Is that a possibility? Sure. Will it happen? No. But I think Rachaad White is in for a game. 18, 19 carries, carries, 80 to 85 yards. I think he finds the end zone on the ground, and he's got a good chance at putting up 45 to 50 receiving yards and a touchdown there too. So if you can get 2 touchdowns out of Rachaad White and 120 all-purpose yards, we're going to be singing from the mountaintops, given the fact that his ownership percentages are going to be in the toilet, because most of the fly by night DFS players go, that Team X is playing San Francisco, I want nothing to do with it. And they don't dig deeper, and they see that Rachaad White is a stone cold stud and he can make some plays happen. Last but not least, I'll give you Jaylen Warren. Pittsburgh's playing Cleveland. Cleveland's has a very tough defensive line, right? And they're doing some things, but in a way, Baltimore kind of did they lead the blueprint, right? Because again, that game was won by Cleveland, and at the last minute it was sweet, but the final score was like 31 to 30, something like that. So they can be scored on, right? I can say Cleveland can be scored on, and I think Jalen White, and again, Najee Harris is kind of their lead back, but Jaylen Warren, when you watch him on the football field, this kid is giving everything he has on every play, and those are the kind of the guys that I want in my seasonal teams. And those are the kids I want when I'm playing DFS week to week. Anytime Jaylen Warren has the football, he runs like his life depends on it. And in week 11, given his price points, it is just a no-brainer for me to get Jaylen Warren in as many lineups as I can, because he can score, and he can score in any different way. We joke around and we say, well, I have a running back here like Rico Dowdle. He's like the bare minimum, whatever. And you'll get some dummy, all it takes is one. Well, yeah, true. But will that happen? No. But when you look at Jaylen Warren, seriously, all it takes is one, because this kid is slippery. He's low to the ground, and he doesn't give a shit, and he's going through a wall if he has to get it done. And those are the kind of players I want on my DFS teams. Those are the kind of players I want on my seasonal teams. So look for Jerome Ford, Rachaad White, Singletary, and Jaylen Warren to absolutely go nuts. Those are the 4, without a doubt, players I'm going to have in a large portion of my DFS entries this week. And last but not least, sorry, I told you I was done. Let's look back at Rico Dowdle. Dallas is playing Carolina. Carolina's 31st overall. And again, we know Dallas is going to win 35. They might even hang 40 points or something like that. And again, they did the same thing last week to the Giants. And lo and behold, Rico Dowdle got basically the entire second half to himself. He absolutely got the entire fourth quarter to himself. And this is the same MO this week. Dallas is giving Carolina like 10.5 points. Dallas is going to go nuts. So why wouldn't we say Rico's going to have the same kind of, action as he did last week? So I think Rico scores a touchdown. I think Rico catches a few passes, and he's only $5,000 on FanDuel, 4.6 on DK, and it's just a simple thing. Salary relief or not, Rico should be in some GPP lineups, because he has a chance to get to 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, and we're rolling given his price tag. So that's what I have for running backs. Granted, I have about 15 more. If you want to read those, you can go to fantasy sixpack.net and click on the bottom of the barrel running backs article. But that's where my head is for running backs so far. Where are you going here?
Well, I've got some running back questions here that I want to answer. We are quickly running out of time here. So I want to hit on these, and then I'll kind of just talk about my top plays and kind of skip a little bit past the rest.
It's been my fault. I'm fired up today. I can't help it.
So Mo asks, is Eckler a must-have in cash versus Green Bay? I think there is a lot to like about Eckler, this week. Green Bay 25th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. And Eckler's not that, everyday kind of running back. He's one of those cheat code guys because he's so involved in that LA passing game, who, let's not forget, they're without 2 of their top 3 wide receivers right now. Mike Williams out for the year. Josh Palmer's been out. I think it is a little bit tough, though, with his salary to hit that 3X number, that I talk about.
Yeah, and you got to deal with ownership percentage. Everybody on Earth knows that they're going to put Eckler in their lineup, so it's a wash, to be honest with you. And if he completely tanks out, most of your lines are probably going to be effed. So you need Eckler to hit that big time value given his price tag. And there could be a chance where, if he craps out, you're kind of left holding your hat. You're screwed just on one player. So to me, Eckler, a great play, but not in my plans this week.
Yeah, I mean, in cash, I don't really give a shit about ownership, honestly. But yes, from an MME perspective, it absolutely matters. He has hit 2.5x in each of his last 3 games. So, I mean, not terrible. I do like the spot. I just think that there's too much other value on the board that I'll get to here briefly. And I plan on paying up for a stud receiver as well. Another question about Brian Robinson Jr. Going up against the Giants, possibly, no Antonio Gibson. And Brian Robinson is a guy that, right now is in my cash lineup. He probably will stay there. I don't necessarily think this is a sneaky play, but I do think that it is a lot better than a lot of people are going to realize. If you go back and you box score hunt, which with all due respect, a lot of, your quote unquote amateurs will do, you're going to be really underwhelmed by what you find in those box scores. But, I think you take away last week's performance. I think that was an outlier. He was, almost 6x, but that came from 119 yards receiving and a touchdown there. That was backed with a 51-yard that got him the touchdown and a 48-yard reception. So he basically doubled his, yards receiving last week on those 2 catches. But, as much as anything here, it's really how bad this, New York Giants, team has been. He's only got, no games above, 2.5x, since week 2. So he's not really a guy that when you look at, those numbers, you're going to go, oh yeah, this is a cash play this week. He looks to be the opposite, but I think the Commanders are going to get a lead early on. And instead of the normal, 40 plus passing attempts that we're used to seeing from them, I think that they're going to lean into Robinson. They're going to lead into Rodriguez. They're going to run the ball and they're going to drain the clock, salt the game away. Our boy Ron here, one of our Discord guy that's, in there quite a bit. Asked about Aaron Jones, why is he not an option? He's seen my entire cash pool.
He is. He's in bottom of the barrel this week. I love Aaron Jones this week.
Yeah. So he's not in my cash pool though. And really what it comes down to is there are just people that I like better than him. Like what do I say quite often? I say you can't play everybody, right?
Yes.
Not in cash for sure. In MME, you can play everybody, you can play their grandmothers, you can play their uncles. It's like a Thanksgiving, party, but in cash you can't do that. So other guys I like more. Want to cover a couple of my favorites. Breece Hall's been a guy that's been a lock for me pretty much the entirety of the week. I think he's just as explosive as any running back in the league. I think he's just as effective in the passing game, even on a bad offense, as pretty much anybody in the league. Matchup is fantastic. Buffalo 22nd schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. Considering his specific skill set as well, I think it's important to note that Buffalo gives up the 4th most receiving yards to running backs as well. Michael Carter, he, was their 3rd down back. He's been released. So I think that Hall's going to get, as many opportunities to score points as we've seen all year. You talked about, Devin Singletary. Now that Dameon Pierce is officially out, he is going to be a priority cash play for me. I will go so far on a Friday as to say I have him locked in. 42 touches the last 2 weeks. Price tag can, combined with, the high volume usage. And this is everything we look for in cash. If you want to put a little bit of icing on the cake, Arizona 29th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. So, got a lot to like there. Other guys I won't really get into, but that I think at least at this point are cash viable. James Conner. I think a lot of Arizona players are going to be in play. So that's why I probably don't get to him. I'm likely playing Murray. I'm not going to force any sort of correlation there, but I'll get to the receivers here in a little bit. And I've got a lot of Arizona receivers that I like. All in my cash pool. One of them is going to play. ATN is a guy that, again, I like more than most this week. Tony Pollard, if somebody wants to go there, I get it. I'm not going to, but if they want to go there, I'm fine with that. And then I say this every week, CMC, death taxes and playing CMC in cash when healthy And then I do want to give you an opportunity here to set the record straight on something real quick. I know we're running short on time, but
Yeah,
I
I
feel
could
like
be quick, and then we'll zoom through wide receivers.
yeah,
But
I feel like this could be important to you.
I found this comment funny. Rainey's Angels. I don't know what your name is, where you're from, or what you do. Is this the guy that got fired from Team Rise or Fall YouTube channel? Absolutely not. All my videos were home runs with that website. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that website, and I have no ill will towards anybody over there, the owner, the creator, operator. And to be fair, I haven't talked to anybody over there since I split. And you know why? I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean, but I don't know why in the hell you would come to this stream and ask if I was the guy who got fired. I do my job. I'm very good at my job, and they just didn't want to pay me. So I split. Why would I hang at a website that would constantly kind of suppress me and kind of that like you're doing too good, you're getting too many views, you're getting too hot, and we need to suppress you because there's egomaniacs, right? That they want their face on the screen. So to be fair, I didn't get fired. I walked away because they weren't paying me what my worth is. I put in my blood, sweat, and tears. I'm writing notes constantly. I do what is asked of me, and I was never rude to anybody there. And it just came to a point where I had to move on because I'm worth more, right? You give me X amount to start the season, and then halfway through the season, you say, you know what, Chris, we're cutting back the pay. Well, I wasn't having that because I work hard at what I do. And I'm really good at what I do. So no way in hell was I fired. I walked away because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I saw a ton of other options, in front of me. And not to be, I rarely talk like this, and I hate that I'm going to say it, but it proves my point here. There are dozens of websites that reached out to me every day almost. We want you here. Can you work? So I'm never going to be out of a job. And I was not fired from there. I walked away because they just didn't want to pay me what I was worth, even after all my work was just completely blowing up everything over there. And I did very well for that website. They're doing well now. No ill will, but no, I was not fired. I walked away because I know my worth. And that's basically the gist of it. So Ron Rainey's Angels, I'd love to know where you heard that, or if you made it up, you're a dummy. But hey, here we are.
So on that note, let's hit wide receivers. We got about 20 minutes and some change. Chris, why don't you go ahead and lead the way with some receivers? I've got a bunch, but I'll probably skip over.
I'll be super quick. I love both the Packers boys this weekend. Green Bay going to the Chargers. It goes perfect with stacking them with Jordan Love, and it's Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. The Chargers 28th overall against opposing wide receivers. We saw what the Lions were able to do to them, and again, the Chargers gave it right back to the Lions. The final score was, what was the final score? 38-31 or something. Yeah, it was something like that. So the Chargers, while they can hang points on offense, they're also giving them away. So to me, and I mentioned it in the Jordan Love blurb, to me, this is a now or never kind of game for Jordan Love. If he can't kind of start to put it together in this game against the Chargers defense, who's 31st against quarterbacks, 28th against wide receivers, then I don't know, because he needs to start playing. He needs to make a play or make himself known that he is the starting quarterback of the future for the Green Bay Packers, because we've seen little blips and from Jordan Love, and I do think he's a phenomenal quarterback, but it should start this week against the Chargers. So give me Romeo Doubs, give me Jaden Reed. I have, what did I say? I have Romeo Doubs to score a touchdown. I have Jaden Reed to score a touchdown. I'm looking at like 85 to 90 total yards, split between the two guys. Noah Brown should kind of be on our radar this week.
If he plays. And he's been absolutely phenomenal. That 150 yards the week before, 173 last week. I mean, he set a record that only DeAndre Hopkins and Andre Johnson were able to accomplish when they were with Houston. Curtis Samuel is on my radar, and that's any Washington wide receiver, Dotson or Curtis Samuel, because the Jets are a punching bag, and with Sam Howell playing as well
as he's playing here, I think the Washington Commanders really put one on the Giants, and that's unfortunate because I like that DeVito kid at quarterback here. And we'll move on. Let me flip the page. I know I got one or two more guys here. I think there's a chance to be had where Rondale Moore and even Michael Wilson for the Arizona Cardinals are able to get a few things done here because as I said, the Houston Texans, they're 12th overall against opposing wide receivers. But again, with Kyler Murray being back, that opens up the entire secondary here because you're going to have either a linebacker or some sort of nickel corner or maybe even a safety kind of pressed down to kind of spy on Kyler Murray. So Rondale Moore did it last week. He was mentioned in bottom of the barrel. He had a great game. And Michael Wilson, 5 to 6 targets. Rondale Moore, 5 to 6 targets. And I'm not saying anything more than 40 to 45 yards, but if either one of them score a quarterback or score a touchdown, we are rolling because their price tags are just so damn cheap. And last but not least, I got to mention the hometown kid, Jameson Williams here. Detroit's playing Chicago. I think we're looking at like a 35 to 14, 35 to 17 kind of final here. I'm not knocking the Bears. I could care less. They talk so much shit in the offseason, and now where are we here? But Jameson Williams is doing everything that's been asked of him. And to be frank, we didn't know what the coaching staff was asking of him. They just wanted him to get on the field and block more and be more involved. And we all saw it in that David Montgomery 75-yard touchdown. He was boom right down the sideline. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually kind of got rid of two guys. One guy kind of tripped after, Jameson blocked the one guy. But it's things like that are endearing to coaching staffs, right? So I think Jameson Williams is going to be on the field a little bit more than often. And I think he sees an extra target or two because of how he's played as of late. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Jameson Williams score some sort of 30 to 45-yard touchdown in this game. He scored last week, but it was called back, because of a holding call or something. So I'm riding Jameson Williams this week. And last but not least, Trey Palmer, Tampa Bay's playing San Francisco. That's where you get to San Francisco. San Francisco is high. They play very well against all these other positions, but they're 24th overall against a wide receiver. So give me Trey Palmer at only he's $3,000 on FanDuel, Dave. It's like, holy smokes, beautiful. $11 on Yahoo. So that's where I'm going with wide receivers. And last but not least, Darnell Mooney. There's always a game against the Bears or the Vikings where one wide receiver you don't see coming absolutely kills us. When I say kills us, you're looking at 65 to 80 yards, but it's those receptions are in big moments when the other team needs a first down to something like that. And I've seen it more times than not. So I think Darnell Mooney might be a good move now that Justin Fields is back playing quarterback.
And I'm going to bring this comment up. I told Mo that I would. We would get to it here. DJ Moore, he said with this price, with Fields, could be that low owned Millie stack, and I don't disagree with that. I don't know what his ownership is going to be, honestly. Like, it stands out to me as a fantastic play. Now that Fields is back, I don't know at what percentage Fields is going to be back, but he's back far enough to the point that he's my second favorite wide receiver this week. Getting Field back, is going to move him from being basically just a complete afterthought, for me, to being a priority cash play. Without Fields, Moore went over 2x one time over 2x in 5 games. In the last 4 games this season with Fields, he went over 2.3x in every game, was over 3.5x 3 out of 4, and had games of 5x and 9x. So it is far from a sure thing here. It is, a little bit, I guess, on the risky side, for lack of a more, better term here. But I think it's more than worth the risk. My number one guy this week, even for cash, Tyreek Hill, volume and just insane production here. Almost too much to pass up when there's so much value available on the slate. And like I said, right off the bat, you asked me what I think of this slate, and I said I think there's a lot of value, right? And again, I wasn't talking about, like Kyle Phillips, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit, who's a stone min on DraftKings. I was also talking about, this DJ Moore here. DJ Moore is mispriced, I think. I think if they knew Fields was going to be back, he'd probably be $300-$400 more. But when pricing comes out, we don't know that. But anyways, Tyreek Hill, right? My car rules, he says. I almost always pay up for, at least stud, one stud each week. This week, it looks like Tyreek Hill for me. Las Vegas is not a fantastic matchup. 13th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers, but Miami does have the highest implied team total of the week. Really the only reason I would say not to pay up for Hill is CMC if you want to play Amon or St. Brown. But for my money, it's going to be Tyreek Hill. The Cardinals wide receivers. Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, Michael Wilson. I think all of them are firmly in play. Even playing Kyler, I'm going to limit it to one. The way my lineups have been working out to this point to, not just your point, but to what, Mo says here. Rondale Moore is a guy that is seeming to make the most sense for me. Probably no coincidence at all that he's, also super cheap. That helps. But if you're playing Murray, I think you really should pair him with one of these guys. I think we all know Kelly. Hey, Kelly, thanks for tuning in. But I think you should pair him here because all these guys are in play. This is not me forcing correlation. How funny, Kelly comes in as I'm talking about Cardinals wide receivers, right? Like I feel like that might have been on purpose. But it's not me forcing the correlation. These are all guys that are in the cash pool. It's just nice when it, naturally, works itself out. I'm going to limit, though, my Cardinals exposure to either Kyler and one pass catcher, or technically, James Conner, or I'm going to just limit it to one pass catcher or James Conner. I'm not going to go crazy. Kyle Phillips, got to at least bring him up here. Full punt option on DK, stone minimum. Never are these plays anything flashy or fancy, but when they're available, they're very valuable. Decent matchup against, Jacksonville, 21st schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. And, in reality, at his price, if he gets you 9 points or close to it, that's going to make it a fantastic play. And he scored, 10.8 points and 9.1 the last 2 weeks. So do with that information whatever you will. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think that's interesting here. The key is going to be the status of Tyler Lockett. If he misses, JSN may well move up to be a priority play for me. If Lockett's in, I think you got to go a different direction in cash. I still think he's an MME play for sure, but for cash, I'm going to be off on him. Now, if Lockett does sit, I think that, you could even play JSN along with a Phillips or along with a Rondale Moore and work yourself up to another stud. But but you really just gotta see what happens with Lockett. Texans wide receivers, we gotta I'm not gonna get fully into it here, but we gotta figure out who's playing and who's not playing. We don't have that information right now. I could argue for any of them. I could argue for Robert Woods, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Noah Brown. I could argue for any one of them, but it's really going to depend on who's in and who's out. So we'll keep an eye on that. Christian Kirk is a guy I've been talking. Zay Jones still out. You said you like Trevor Lawrence. This is the guy I think that you want to pair him with. In Tennessee, 28th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receiver. So good matchup for a guy that's been extraordinarily consistent. And then, of course, Amon St. Brown, almost the perfect, cash wide receiver. He kind of reminds me, he's like the CMC of wide receivers here. So even though I'm almost surely playing Tyreek, I don't think it'd be fair for me not to mention him because if you want to go this route, save a little bit of cash, you have a better floor, but you do lose a lot in the ceiling. I'm going to be playing Tyreek, but if you want to play Amon-Ra, I totally get it, Chris.
Yeah, and Bobo. Mo Green says, go back to Bobo if Lockett was out. I just happened, like maybe an hour ago, I had I gotten home, I was having dinner, I put on NFL Network for a few minutes while I was doing other stuff, and I saw the play where Bobo caught the touchdown, right? It was not a touchdown, and then it was kind of a behind the scenes, and I caught Pete Carroll talking to the referees, and he was saying, I think I'm going to back my guy. And Bobo came running by and go, coach. And it was actually overturned and he caught a touchdown. And Bobo Bobo has been phenomenal, right? We're always going to get guys, this late in the season that show that, granted, they're not blue chip prospects. They're not built in the lab. They're not like DK Metcalf or Calvin Johnson, but a guy like Bobo is just like, he can wind up being the heart and soul of a team, of an offense. And Bobo, just one of those guys, never been given anything. He shows up, he works his ass off, he doesn't complain, he doesn't bitch, and yet he's going to get plays. They're going to look for him. Geno Smith, probably one of Geno Smith's favorites, because he knows Bobo is going to be where he's supposed to be given the play call here. So Bobo locked in for a TD. I love that. I'm going to write that down and maybe add it in our touchdown parlay. So if we're going to pivot to tight ends here, it's going to be very quick, because I have about 12 of them I written down. I'm currently working on the bottom of the barrel tight end article. I didn't get a lot done today when I was working and all that and typing stuff out, but this is what I'm going to list down: every tight end I have in the article this week, and then stop and talk about one or maybe two. We get to DSTs and we can get the heck out of here and enjoy our Friday nights. Well, George Kittle, the most expensive tight end on the slate, rightfully so. He's starting to come on. That touchdown last week was beautiful, and George Kittle's always been a phenomenal tight end, one of my favorites. If we're going to be serious, I'm not saying that George Kittle is better than Travis Kelce or better than Mark Andrews, but to me, I find him to be fun and active, and he's a pretty damn good tight end as well. He's the most expensive tight end on the main slate on FanDuel, at least. And then we go down Luke Musgrave. Again, let's attack that Green Bay game against the Chargers, because the Chargers are just giving away points like it's Halloween candy. So to me, Luke Musgraves and Jordan Love and the two Green Bay Packers wide receivers, that's four Packers right there. We can put in one lineup in one entry, and then we fill in the blanks elsewhere. Donald Parham Jr., the guy on the other side of the field, playing the Packers are 11th overall. But again, when you look at the Green Bay Packers playing the Chargers have, just an allotment of studs. And I could see a case here where in the red zone, right? Not on the goal line, but in the goal line work is always going to Austin Eckler. Let's be honest here. But like, if they're inside the red zone, inside the 10 to 15 yard range, I could see Donald Parham getting a look or two, those high upside targets here. And Donald Parham is cheap across the board. And all he needs is what? 2 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. And we are happy as a pig in crap, as they say. As we go down, Pat Freiermuth, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything looks to be a good and a go for Pat Freiermuth this week. And again, he came up in that, well, if I'm not mistaken, that TJ Hawkinson draft. It was who's going to be the better tight end, when all is said and done. Pat Freiermuth has been dealing with an injury. He's finally active again, but they're playing Cleveland. But when you look at Pittsburgh, there's a lot to account for there with their dual running backs of Najee and Jalen Warren and a few of their wide receivers. I don't know what's going on with George Pickens, but you look at Deontay Johnson, he's finally finding his form again. I could see a case where Pat Freiermuth, if he's 100% healthy, Freiermuth can be counted on 5 receptions for 40 to 50 yards a game without a doubt. And, the touchdown would be sweet on top. Tyler Higbee, finally, with Matt Stafford back. Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Tyler Higbee are like that trio there in Los Angeles, where it's those three, and now Puka's in play. They have Darrell Henderson at running back now because of a few injuries there. But when you look at Higbee, I think there's a case to be made for he catches 2 or 3 passes, 30, 40 yards, and one of them will be a touchdown. And when you look at his prices, they're bare minimum. As we go down the list, Chiga Konwu, Tennessee's at Jacksonville. Jacksonville's awful against tight ends. And again, I've mentioned Chigan bottom of the barrel like 5 weeks in a row, and he's done nothing. And so I'm going to keep mentioning him until he does something. If he scores a touchdown this week, I can wipe my hands of Chig, and we'll see you next season. My 2 favorite tight ends on the slate this week, Tyler Conklin. The Jets go to Buffalo. Right now, Buffalo is Buffalo is 1 loss away just from completely falling apart. And I don't know what will happen. But when you look at Tyler, the volume is just been insane for Tyler Conklin. And again, Buffalo 13th overall against opposing tight ends. Does that really matter this late in the season? But his price 4.8 on FanDuel, 2.9 on DraftKings, 11 dollars on Yahoo. Tyler Conklin is probably my favorite tight end this week. As we move down, my second favorite will be Danny Bellinger. The Giants are in Washington. Washington's 20th overall against opposing tight ends, but Daniel Belly, or I'll just call him Belly, is getting some looks. They're seeing what they have in him, and he's doing okay. Lucas Cager's kind of in the background there, but give me Tyler Conklin and Daniel Bellinger, and I've already built a couple lines, a couple entries here, and I'm running that double tight end, and it's with Tyler Conklin and Daniel Bellinger. Does that make me stupid? I don't know. If nothing happens, everybody forgets it, right? That's the whole MO with DFS. If Conklin and Bellinger do nothing, everybody forgets about it. If Conklin and Bellinger combine for 3 or 4 touchdowns and 100 yards, I'm the genius. And as we round out this list, Michael Mayer in Vegas finally scored his first touchdown. He was supposed to be the stud, the next Kelsey, the next just TJ Hawkinson kind of thing. And he finally scored a touchdown last week. Let's hope that gets the ball rolling. And Miami's 18th overall against opposing tight ends. And again, Miami's just going to just run all over the Vegas Raiders. But again, Vegas is still going to have to finish this game, and they're going to be playing from behind and throwing the ball. And I think that benefits Michael Mayer. And last but not least, Tommy Tremble in Carolina. Bryce Young hasn't been what we expected as a rookie quarterback, but hey, things happen like that. And Tommy Tremble get Dallas is 15th overall against tight ends. And there's going to be a case here where Carolina is playing from behind and just throwing the football. And Tommy's found the end zone a few times this season, so I wouldn't be shocked to see Tommy Tremble score a late fourth quarter touchdown, and it would make our day because he's 2.5 on DraftKings, $10 on Yahoo, only $47 on Yahoo. So that's where I'm going with tight ends, and I'm telling you, Tyler Conklin, Daniel Bellinger, my favorite tight end combo this week, boys.
So, I mean, in a normal week, Tyler Conklin would probably be my cash tight end because he's so cheap. And I really think that, he's getting a good matchup here. Buffalo, I'm showing 23rd schedule adjusted fantasy points to tight ends, 13 catches over the last 2 weeks. But there's 4 guys that I like better than him, unfortunately. And again, we're running low on time here, so I'll make it relatively quick. 2 guys I definitely like the most. Dalton Kincaid, been absolutely, ridiculous. Last 4 weeks, gone for at least 3.7x, gone over 5x twice. Now, granted, there are some weeks in there where he was a little bit just over 3K on DraftKings. That's not the case anymore. Now you're paying for him. But, really like him here. I know you can say, it's kind of a tough matchup against the Jets. Tight ends are where they're most susceptible. 17 schedule adjusted fantasy points there. Trey McBride, I think he's going to be the absolute chalk, not only in cash, but in MMEs. And I don't have a hole to poke in it. The way my builds are working out, I've got a little bit extra cash, so I'm paying up for Kincaid. But I would be thrilled to play, Trey McBride here as well. The volume that he's getting is just absolutely too much for what his price tag is. And Houston dead last, in schedule adjusted points to tight ends as well. So great price, great volume, great matchup. Whichever way you want to go there is fine. I'll mention Evan Ingram as well. He's basically a wide receiver playing tight end. So long as, Zay Jones is out and Calvin Ridley is sucking, it's really Kirk and Ingram who've been, doing it. I just think Ingram's going to end up being more of an MME play. I like McBride and I like, Kincaid so much more. And then I got to bring up Cole Kmet because when Justin Fields is in the game, same thing with DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is a guy who gets more than you expect. And so I'm interested in him. But again, I think it's more of an MME play just because I think Kincaid and McBride really are at a different level than the other guys. I wish I could play Conklin, but, this would be the perfect week to do it. I just can't. And then I'll rail off a couple of defenses here real quick. We'll get out of here. There's 3 that I'm considering for cash. Dolphins are looking like where I'm going to go, but I can make an argument for the Packers, even though the matchup isn't great, but I think it makes sense. It's a nice pay down option. If you want to pay up a little bit more, you can go the Commanders. That Giants, offense has been so terrible that they make even a team that has lost their two, pass rushers. I think that they make them viable as well. Obviously, for MME, you can do whatever the hell you want to. But for cash, those are the three I'm looking at, heavily leaning on the Dolphins. Are you there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. You were frozen for a second. So.
I brought up an extra window. I have a little secret DST window that I brought up on my screen, and I think it started to slow down the process.
But what do you got on defense? And then we'll get the heck out of here.
All right, beautiful. When we look at DSTs, we already know that volatility is crazy. It is what it is. I love the Lions this week at home against Chicago. And again, I don't care what the price tags are as it stands now. I love the Washington Commanders. To be fair, I would even consider the New York Jets DST, because in this game I have this game very under. I have Washington winning like 17-13. So both teams I would consider in as my DST on this one. I also like I don't know how shocking it would be, but the Green Bay Packers, maybe a little bit, maybe there's an interception or a fumble, something like that. I also like the Pittsburgh DST. They do go to Cleveland, but I just think this game, like, Pittsburgh has always owned Cleveland, and as well as Cleveland has played or whatever it is, I mean, and they're at home, but they might be a little bit demoralized and deflated because Deshaun Watson is done. They paid him like $700 million, and he's played in like 19 games. I think that this is a make or break week for the Cleveland Browns, and I do think Pittsburgh wins this one 21-17. So I like the Pittsburgh DST, and that's about it, to be fair, because the rest of the games I have Houston in Arizona like putting up like 60 total points. I'm over on the Houston and Arizona game. So to me, again, I also like Denver. I know Denver's not on the main slate, but they've played so well. So if we get Sunday Night Football, single game entry, I would look to put Denver in an MVP captain spot. But when we look at the main slate, the Giants or Washington in the same game. And what else did I say? Probably
Packers.
The Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I am good.
All right. So as we say, this was our rough draft essay. Sunday at noon Eastern is when we give our final presentation, our final draft, where we have all the information that we're going to get. We can finalize our thoughts, let you know where we are in that regard. But that's going to do it here for a Friday night. I appreciate all the comments. I think it makes the show better. Allows us to directly answer some questions, and
without a doubt,
I don't feel like it gets us off track at all. I just kind of save them for the right moment a lot of times. But Chris, it was a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
You go do you. I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna go downstairs and
I'm gonna finish my bottom of the barrel tight end article.
Well, look at
and
you.
Then I'm gonna reach out to, if I can find him. I gotta scroll through here. I'm gonna reach out to Ronnie's Angels and really give him one of these from fired from the last website I'm at.
All right, everyone. We appreciate it, and we'll see you Sunday, 12 o'clock.
Finger guns, yeah.